Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are. This is the Roaming Prepper channel, and thank you for joining me today. This will be the first time I've done a situation report in probably about a year, maybe more. Those of you who've been following me for a long time know I used to do these as Saturday sit rep. But, life happens and as our schedules change, so does mine, and so does my YouTube. So if you look at my early videos and schedule versus what I do now, it's quite different. The only thing I've consistently done is Thursday at 5:30. I'll premiere a new product or some other topic. But anyway, we're going to get right into it after my brief intro, and we're going to talk about a situation report. I'll explain for those of you who are newer to me in the last couple of years how the format is and what I'm trying to convey. I'll be right back. Well, good afternoon again, everyone, and thank you for joining me. First of all, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to share, that's great. I do appreciate it. It actually does help my channel. If you want to leave me a thumbs down because I said something stupid that offended you, that's fine too. I made the mistake of saying, yeah, you can put poop emojis in the comments, and one of you actually put apparently about 32 poop emojis in one string of comments. So that's what I get for being a smartass. But in any case, so the situation report is something I used to do regularly. Most of you know I'm a corporate guy, I'm an engineer. Most of you know I travel quite a bit, much more than your average person. Not always extravagant flights, to Abu Dhabi or Europe or whatever. But I have gone to those places, but a lot of it is just regional stuff that any one of us could do at any given point in time. A family member gets sick, you get a new job, and now you're on the road more. And that's been the gist of the channel. Because of what I do, I have access to a lot of information that comes via corporate sources, as well as our affiliation with other companies and companies' affiliations with governments around the world that, we're all work together and you have to deal with one another in the course of business. And I get information about things that may be relevant to us. So the situation report that I do is a compilation of State Department, public media, and publicly released corporate information. This is stuff that you can find yourself. It's just I've got it compiled into a report that we have. And the whole goal is to give you information about what's going on in the world so you have a better understanding of the bigger picture. Now, I'm not going to come on here and say, oh, situation report, we're all going to die, atomic weapons and whatnot. That's always a possibility, sadly, in our modern world, but that's not the intent of this. The intent of this is to give you a picture of what's going on globally. Because, for instance, during the backlash to the medicines that were used for C-19, it turns out that was happening all over the world, but we did not hear it in our media. They squished it. You were hearing it from fringe media, and we were hearing it from other sources. So those kind of scenarios, it's good for us to have a global context. Also, when something happens overseas that affects a trade route, it affects all of us. And that's basically what we're trying to do here. So this week, this report will be, by the time you guys see this, would be the 9th of December. So it'll be from the weekend. So it'll be a couple of days old. So again, things can change between the time I post this, or either I record it and post it, and the time y'all see it. So in any case, I'm going to start in the continents. It's going to go by continents, and this is the format I've always used. Go by continents in alphabetical order, and then go by countries in alphabetical order within those continents. And anything that's not relevant, I'm just going to briefly mention and just keep going. I'll also give you what news or government resource posted the information so that you guys can have that for yourself. So let's go with the Africa. We're going to start with Africa, the country of Chad. Hundreds of people in Chad protest against French military in the country. This is from Associated Press. Hundreds of people marched in Chad on Friday to call for the withdrawal of French troops from the country a week after the Central African country ended its military agreement with its former colonial ruler. Now, yes, Chad was a French colony back during the expansionist and the imperialist eras. if you want to call it that, this from the 17s to like World War II, 1700s to World War II, basically, when everything just got rearranged. And interesting when you think about it like that. In any case, this is not the only country that's having issues with trying to get another country's military out of their nation. Again, this is an old issue with Chad. Really doesn't affect our trade routes, and to my knowledge, doesn't affect oil and gas or shipping. So we'll keep an eye on it, but really, this is more domestic issue. Moving on, Ghana's presidential frontrunners in last minute rally for votes. That's in Reuters, from Reuters. And they're talking about their courting voters in the final push ahead of the world's second biggest cocoa producers legislative and presidential election set for Saturday. I did not know that Ghana was the second biggest producer of cocoa, not cocaine, but coca, like, chocolate stuff. But again, if you like your chocolate, that might affect you. More than likely, this is just domestic news. Mali's having some issues. Mali issues a arrest warrant for Barrick Gold CEO. Now, you probably all know that the United Healthcare CEO was basically assassinated in New York City by a person who deliberately showed their face and then threw their backpack in a park to be found. But it took the police 5 days to find it. Anyway, I have all sorts of opinions about what happened with United Health. Anyway, Mali, one of the Africa's biggest gold producers, has issued an arrest warrant for Barrick Gold, traded on the market as ABX.TO. New chief executive Mark Barristow. Warrant documents seen on Thursday by Reuters show, this is a Reuters report, escalating a dispute between the Canadian mining company and the local government. Now, this is something we're going to see a lot of as resources get tight, the effect of inflation, especially on the poor nations who now can't afford to eat. I mean, we're struggling, so imagine what it would be like in like Africa and some of these other places. It's terrible. They're turning against the companies because they're of the opinion, this company is taking the wealth of our people, but we're not getting our fair share. It should be an equitable, hey, all of us profit, not. But Mali has historically had issues with the money that is sent to them winding up in the elites' pockets and not making it down to the people. So you have that whole other issue. But this is the second report of a CEO being targeted in some way, shape, or form in a week. And it's interesting because you heard nothing about this in American media. From Associated Press, Mali court frees 11 signatories to declaration calling for the ruling military junta to stand down. Court in Mali has freed 11 opposition leaders who were arrested in June on charges of plotting against the ruling military junta and calling for a return to civilian rule. So if you're traveling to that part of the world, yeah, I would recommend not doing that. Moving on to Asia Pac, East Asia Pacific. Australia police search for 2 suspects in arson attack on Melbourne synagogue. This is from Reuters as well. Australian police on Friday said they're looking for 2 people suspected of deliberately starting a fire at Melbourne synagogues and injured one and caused widespread damage. This one's relevant to us. Okay, the other stuff is interesting and it's something to watch as a trend. That bothers me because it's happening a lot in Australia. It's happening a lot in Europe. We're not seeing it in the US of A yet. We are seeing prejudicial behavior against Jews. And again, regardless of whether you're pro-Palestine, pro-Israel, whatever your political view is, you're seeing a justification to target a specific group. And that should be concerning to everybody because, I have friends who are Jews. I have extended family who are Jewish as well. And growing up, I knew Holocaust survivors. So this is concerning to me, especially in a place like Australia. This is the kind of stuff you would expect to see in a third world country like Mali. And Mali, I think, could care less if you're a Jew. But in Australia, That's a problem. Australia does have quite a bit of a Jewish population, and this is the third or fourth report in the last 3 or 4 weeks I've seen. It's been escalating, and there's actually a video of a bunch of anti-Israel protesters in the street, and one guy shows up with an Israeli flag across the street, and the police arrest the Israeli supporter and let the other guys chant. Now, some people said, well, they had a permit and they were authorized and they were within the boundaries of their barrier and he was breaking the rules. And if so, then that's what it is. But this is concerning because if it's justified overseas, eventually that kind of stuff will leak into the US, into Canada, into Mexico. Mexico, not so much, but there is a large Jewish population there as well. But in the US and Canada, we may start seeing this. So if you have people close to you who are Jewish, you may want to tell them to be aware and be a little more discreet. It's just something that is happening. And you're going to start seeing these religious attacks escalate as financial and economic times continue to remain hard. Maybe with a change in leadership in the US and Europe as things change, maybe there'll be less pressure on people. You won't see them lashing out as much, but it remains to be seen. In South Korea, we all know that they declared martial law and then they rescinded it. This report I know is already dated because they said South Korea, Yoon under pressure to resign as the threat of impeachment looms. This is Reuters. It turned out about an hour before I made this video. They decided not impeachment. They are asking him to step down and name a successor that everyone can agree on. So they're in negotiations for that. That was not good. It is something we need to watch out for because we have an inauguration on January 20th. We have the verification on, I think it's January 6th in our country, in the US. So we need to be mindful of how this plays out because we've had a lot of conversations about the changing of the rules of engagement for the American military against civilians and the National Guard. What if, there are a lot of hypotheticals. What if the federal government says the troops need to go to the street and the National Guard of every state says, no, go to hell. We're with the state. And then the civilians rise up. And now what? And hence the movie Civil War, which I know some of you didn't like as much, but it does give a little bit of a flavor of the chaos that would ensue. So this is interesting. Hopefully they can negotiate this out diplomatically and we don't have troops in the street, especially in the fact that in South Korea, we now have about 3,500 American military in that country. We don't want their country coming apart with our boys and girls stuck in the middle of it. They don't need to be there. Not for something like that. Get attacked by North Korea is different. We're helping an ally. They have their own revolution. We don't need to be part of that. In any case, moving on to Europe. And again, there are a lot of elections and there's a lot of belligerence going on all over Europe right now. So Germany, a terror attack on Bavarian Christmas market is foiled by police. German authorities foiled a potential terror attack on a Christmas market in Bavaria after a tip-off from a foreign intelligence agency. This is listed in Politico. And again, this is something we all need to be aware of is as the holidays approach, people gather, regather. There's Hanukkah, there's Christmas, and then you have, for those who celebrate the African Kwanzaa, there's also, as you go into the spring, I believe you have the Chinese New Year, and then you have Eid, and I may have my dates wrong. So if you are Muslim and I have the dates wrong, if you can comment what the correct date is, that would be great. But there's a lot of religious festivals between what in the US Thanksgiving all the way through February. And so people will gather for these events. They'll gather for Christmas markets. They gather at the bar. They gather to church or synagogue or mosque. And groups of people focused on prayer or focused on an event have a significant risk of being targeted. And so that's something that's very important that we keep our radars on when we're out and about. It doesn't mean be paranoid, but be vigilant. When you go to a gathering, you go to a Christmas market, where did you park? Can you get out quickly? Did you back in your vehicle? Further, do you have alternate ways to get out? For instance, if you can't get back to your vehicle, do you know, oh, there's a subway over here, or I know the way to walk home if I need to, or yeah, there's a bar around the corner and I know the owner or the manager and I can hide there for an hour until everything settles. Being able to clear out an area, much less get all the way home, but just clear out of a danger area can be a huge game changer. I mean, think about it. There's an active shooting or there's some other violence or even just groups of people fist fighting, and you don't want to be part of that. And you know, okay, I can't get to my car. I'm going to go up the street. I know there's a restaurant here and they have a bathroom and they have food. I'm going to go there and see if I can hide in this restaurant or this hotel 3 or 4 blocks away. You've left the danger area, and you'll let law enforcement and whoever's fighting have their own problem, and you get the hell out. At the end of the day, you may not be able to make it all the way home immediately, but the goal is to get away from the hazard long enough to then take the next step. And I want you guys to think about that when you travel, because that's very much the way I think. I probably have never explained it in that way. But yeah, that's kind of concerning that there was a terror attack. Now, what's interesting, they don't say who was going to attack. Bavaria is a very conservative Christian part of Germany, and so it's hard to say. Now, in Romania, thousands attend a pro-European rally in Romania ahead of a presidential runoff. They have 2 presidential candidates. They have, let's see, thousands of people rallied in the Romanian capital of Bucharest on Thursday in support of democracy ahead of a Sunday presidential runoff that could see far-right critic of the EU defeat a pro-European centrist candidate. You're seeing a lot of countries moving to the right because of these mindless immigration policies that have disrupted societies. And that was the goal. Soros and Klaus and all those folks saw the Holocaust, they saw World War II and Hitler, and they said, you know what causes that is cultures being different. We're just going to erase cultures, which is truly a Marxist thing. That is a communist thing. You remove all the cultures, nobody's different, you're all equal, but that's not human nature. Human nature is such that we're tribal in the sense that we form our own communities of like faith, like minds, like living behavior, whatever it is you want to see. And instead of trying to create a framework where people can coexist and be different, they were trying to force cultures to just be erased and blurred out, and it's backfiring. And now everyone's going way off to the right, which may or may not be a good thing in the long run either. So take your pick there. Moving on, Middle East and North Africa. Libya's central bank to print 30 billion dinars to ease liquidity shortage. Central bank printing money again. This is from Reuters. Central Bank of Libya said on Thursday it contracted British banknote printer De La Rue to print 30 billion dinars, 6.25 billion, in order to solve liquidity shortage problems at the country's commercial banks. Now, the question is, what is this based on? Like, you just printing money. I can print fake money on my printer, and monopoly money, it doesn't mean anything. So is this going to drive up inflation, introducing a bunch of bills that really are not valid? Excuse me. Sorry, I needed a swig of coffee there. Okay. So Middle East, also Syria. This is from Arab News. Thousands flee Homs, H-O-M-S, as Syrian militants push on lightning offensives. So the Syrian rebels, who are backed by the U.S. and Israel, are pushing very hard against Assad. Turkey is not a fan of Assad or the Kurds, and so they just keep bombing random ass people that they don't like. But there's rumors that Israel and Turkey have had a conversation and said, we need to settle Syria down because neither of us is benefiting from this shit, and they're attacking our countries. So that would be a very interesting evolution of alliances if Turkey and Israel had a joint operation in Syria to kick Assad out. For those of you who do have to travel to that part of the world, I would recommend highly either flying into Greece and then taking a boat to Latakia, or flying directly to Latakia. You can fly into Lebanon, but with the Israeli Hezbollah thing, that may not be as safe as it was a year ago. before October 7th attacks, you could fly into Lebanon and take a bus or a special car across the border and you were fine, even as an American running business. Now, not so much. So I know a lot of you don't go to that part of the world, but if you know someone who does, tell them to be right. Tell them to be take the right course of action. Be careful. South Central Asia, Pakistan. This is a Reuters report as well. Pakistani jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan threatens civil disobedience movement. So Pakistan's jailed former prime minister has called on his supporters to hold a rally next week and threatened to start a civil disobedience movement days after his party led a deadly protest march in Islamabad. Again, you're starting to see a lot of these countries are splintering and they're getting violent. And we've seen it here in 2020. Didn't see it as much, knock on wood, in 2024 yet, but there are things you need to look for. You need to look for leaders deliberately calling for civil disobedience. To be honest, I haven't. There's some that have been blatant and some not. A lot of people accuse Trump of doing it. I think Trump riled people up. I don't believe, from what I watched, we all watched the same news, I never heard him say go and tear up the Capitol. Now, could he have said other things to defuse? Sure. I mean, anybody could make that argument. I don't remember Obama saying go to the streets and being violent either. I do recall certain Congress people saying get in their face and make them take a medicine, or fire them or put them in jail, ruin their lives. This was an ongoing thing on Twitter before it became X. So listen to those kind of words and verbiage and language, because it kind of gives you a temperature of the room when it comes to your society. And if you see locally, people are like, oh, if you didn't do this, we need to just put you in jail. We're not going to have a conversation. We're just putting you in jail. There's no longer a discourse. And this has become a general thing in American society. And again, it's happening all over the world. Western Hemisphere. And that was from, Western Hemisphere, Mexico. This is the Mexico Daily News, or Mexico News Daily, sorry. Pacifying Sinaloa won't be quick as security minister visits the troubled state. Almost 3 months after a long-running feud between rival factions of the Sinaloa cartel escalated into a full-blown war, Security Minister Omar Garcia Harfuch has arrived in Sinaloa to coordinate the security strategy in the violence-plagued northern province. And in the same note, AP News, Mexico's president has asked Trump to deport non-Mexican migrants directly back to their home country. Don't send them back to us, send them there, and send any Mexican citizen who's gone illegally here. And that's a smart move, to be fair to the Mexican president, because she's got a problem on her southern border because they're going through her country to get to ours, and they are raping, pillaging, and causing problems there. Not all of them, but many of them. And then a lot of them are getting victimized by the cartels. You've all seen the video of the 2-year-old girl and the 10-year-old boy who basically left alone. And it was by the miracle of God that a state trooper was driving a patrol route and saw a kid on the side of the road by themselves. And he spoke Spanish. He was Latino like me, and he went over and started speaking. And they did rescue the 2 little girls. They did rescue the little boy. One of the kids said his mom is in America. They were like, where? They don't know. The kid started falling behind the group, and the smuggler basically left the kid. Yeah, we paid you to get you into the country. You're in the country. Good luck, shorty. And left the little kids behind. So they're having their own issues. To be honest, Mexican citizens can very easily come to the US and get drunk at our concerts the same way we go to Cancun and get drunk on the beach. I've said this before. The US, Mexico, and Canada have pretty easy rules to get back and forth. The Mexican wants to come here and work, they can get visas, they can get temporary work permits. There's a lot of options. If if they're sneaking in, they're up to no good. And Mexico knows that. So they're like, if they want to arrest them anyway, just give them to us and we'll put them in jail. Because everyone who went over legally, and it's not difficult nor very expensive, they can do so the same way we go there to go shopping and whatnot. They come here. but they don't want to deal with the Hondurans, the Venezuelans, the Colombians, the Guatemalans, all that other stuff. They just can't. They've already got the Sinaloa problem. They don't need that as well. They don't have enough resources. So Mexico has a unique opportunity to redefine the relationship with the US with their new president and our returning president. And they could probably really make a dent in securing not just the border, but securing business and trade and just making both countries safer for people trying to make their living. Um, Now, the people coming in here from other places, that's a problem for both countries, and the two countries need to work together. Sadly, I'm seeing more discussion and interaction between Mexico and the US than Canada and the US. Um, Other than Trump saying we should make Canada the 51st state and freak out Trudeau, Trudeau's been largely useless. The other leaders want to have a conversation. They want to try and redefine things, maybe do some business, maybe get rid of some crime. I'm all about that. If they can have these conflicts resolved by dialogue, and people can make a deal, and maybe, if people make money, they're less likely to commit crimes, then great. Knucklehead up north needs to go. That's just my opinion. In any case, folks, that's it for this one. I will mention that Rwanda, on November 22nd, the State Department and the CDC both lowered their travel advisory and health notice for Rwanda from level 3 to 2 in response to the Marburg virus disease starting to subside. I guess the doctors and the government there and the American and European doctors who all went have managed to get a handle on the Marburg, and they've gotten it to where it's declining. They got the treatment options in place, so hopefully they can get rid of that. No reports on that weird flu. Angry Prepper had mentioned it, and I think Prepper Now had as well. I did not see any of that. Let me look and make sure I didn't miss it. No. And yeah, so that's it. And they're going to have a conference in Houston, Texas for the energy sector. So I might be able to sneak into that. And it'll be at Rice University for those of you who live in Houston and are affiliated with companies that might be part of these programs. So in any case, folks, that's it for this one. A bit of a long report. In the future, I'm going to go through them a lot faster. But for the first one, I wanted to give you guys an understanding and a context of why I do it the way I do, how the flow works. It goes by continents, then by countries. And I'm going to skip over, gloss over things that are not directly affecting us. And I'll point out things that are relevant that we should just keep an eye on so we understand what's going on. In any case, ladies and gentlemen, be good, be safe, God bless. And don't forget to hit the like on the way out the door. I will see you on the next video.